Good morning. It's Saturday, April 9th. I haven't checked my calendar yet. Okay. Went to bed late, got up late, didn't sleep enough. Saw some young soldiers in my dreams. They were everywhere. At least they were our guys. I gathered some books together yesterday, and I wanted to share these with you. And I suppose first I should let you know I'm doing all right. I got a lot of things going, moving as quickly as I can. We have not been getting good news in this country. The news inside this country is totally controlled. They have better news in Europe. The rest of the world actually gets better news than we get inside the United States of America. When I lived in Europe, I would write letters to my parents, and once in a while talk to them on the phone and ask them if they saw the same things happening as what I saw were happening. No, they didn't. And even though my father was regular Army, all that information's kept segmented, compartmentalized. It's kind of early in the morning for me. I got a little hoarseness in my voice this morning. What do you need to know today? Yeah, the food riots have started in other countries. They'll be coming here pretty shortly. Remember, this is all done by design. Oh, and in case you're wondering, that wonderful book that we are reading, those guys had a hand in that. And I don't understand their influence in it just yet and to what extent they have compromised it. I've got a hunch, and I'm going to share that with you now. And this is kind of a tough one because this is really out on a limb. Okay? So you can say that this is something I'm exploring, but don't you say that this is what I believe, okay? Because it's really not. I don't know what to believe right now. But it looks like there were a couple of guys that may have been drinking buddies, and they definitely were gambling friends, and they decided they were going to play a game. And they decided that they were going to play by the rules. And so they devised a rule book between them. And it looks like that's the playbook we have in front of us. They've used it to control us, cajole us. They've used it to govern our minds, government, to control one's mind. They've developed different religions out of this book. We've got religions with dispensational periods, which though they're actually 2,000 years each, these dispensational periods, everything's perfectly balanced. Nah, that's just man's thinking, and it's all deceptive. You got to read the Bible for yourself. I know a lot of you go to Sunday school, a lot of you go to churches, and you've never read the Bible for yourself. Just open it up. Push your way through it. When you get to boring passages, long, tedious genealogies and stuff, just push on through it. Go to the next section. Get the general gist of the book. When I read a book, I like to read it 3 times. The first time I go through rather quickly to get the gist of it, to get the flavor of it, to become acquainted with it, to get an idea of what this book is about. The second time I will read slowly, and I will take my time in that, but I won't mark the book up. And the third time I read through it, I will mark the book up. I will underline, I will highlight, I will dog ear, I will asterisk, I'll make notes in the margins, notes in the back. Quite often when I get a good book, I buy 2 copies, one to study and the one to preserve and keep pristine. I can't always afford to do that. I didn't do that with this book right here. Final Judgment by Michael Collins Piper. When I went and visited Tex Mars, traveled across the country to meet the gentleman, he refused to meet with me. His excuse was he was trying to finish up 2 books. Probably the truth. But they, in his offices, were told to give me any of the books. Well, not give me any of the books, but sell me any of the books I wanted. And in particular, they sold this to me at half the going rate. This is the final version of it. There were several versions of this book. This is the big one. I paid $50 for it. I wish I'd asked for 2 copies. As you can see, I have not read all the way through. I got about a third left. It's kind of tedious. It really is. I wish I had 2 copies because it's worth studying. Now, if you want to know who killed Kennedy, right there in the middle of the front cover. It's not hidden from you. Who's that man? Look, there were a lot of people that actually killed him. Most of the establishment, most of the players in the world wanted the man dead because he was challenging their party, their ability to predate upon the rest of us. Folks, you need to understand something. We're not white supremacists. We're not supposed to rule the world except with Yahweh. We are the servant race. So some of you crackers out there, here I go on. I'm trying to correct my language so I can make these suitable for children. This is not suitable for children, though. But this man ordered the killing of President Kennedy. Kennedy refused to give Israel nukes. And he said, offhand, over my dead body, to this short little guy, this tiny guy, who was older than him. And unfortunately, this evil, wicked man, this terrorist, this international terrorist, said in his mind, well, so be it. That's the way you want it. So be it. And so Israel got nukes because of the Kennedy assassination. Johnson gave them the nukes, gave them the fissionable materials, 1,000 pounds of it from Hanford Refinery alone. And when the USS Liberty was struck by the Israelis, President Johnson was noted as saying, he didn't give a damn if the entire ship sunk and went to the bottom of the ocean. We will not embarrass our Israeli friends, our friends in Israel. That's what Lyndon Baines Johnson said. Now, just to give you a little bit of more advice on him, Lyndon Baines Johnson's mother was of Jewish descent. Okay. Pretty evil guy. Killed a lot of people on the way to the White House. He screwed us up. He gave us the Great Society. He put us in the Vietnam War. He made sure it was fought in a slow fashion so they could draw it out and they could milk us for all the treasure, all the money they could get, so we could support that military-industrial establishment, which, by the way, folks, today is a medical military-industrial establishment, and it always has been. We are fighting all fronts, folks. You know, their war against us is unlimited. They've been using nuclear on us. They've been using chemicals on us, biologicals, electricity, everything they can. They do it subtly so that we don't detect it. They don't do it outright in your face. If they did, we would recognize them for what they are and take them out. By the way, that's what we're supposed to do according to the book of Obadiah in the Bible. I suggest you get it out and read it right away. It's only one chapter, 22 verses long. If you got problems understanding it, well, then you need to read the rest of the Bible. It's real straight ahead. And you're not going to like it, because the task that we have is not a pleasant task. But the problem is that in order to kindle us, a lot more of us are going to have to die. Here's another book I pulled out. The 2 C's of Genesis 3:15. Okay. He called himself an evangelist here by Evangelist Dan Gaiman. This is a hardback copy. I bought the last of the hardbacks. I thought, and he pulls out more. Guy's kind of sneaky in a way. But it's okay. As he told me on Amazon, I could get $100 per book. Well, this one's got a dust cover. It's available if you want it. I've been trying to sell it for a long time. Clean, pristine. I haven't been through this one. A little smudging on the dust jacket, but it's I probably should be asking 200 for it. It's pretty rare. What's the purpose of this book? It basically explains what happened in the garden. It's not, I mean, it's a good study, somewhat scientific, if you will, good logical reasoning, a good argument. I do disagree with the two seed theory that they come up with because their two seeds are the seeds of Cain and the seeds of Adam. I always thought the two seed theory was of the two seeds of evil that came off of the Cain line, namely the Edomites and the Ishmaelites, interbred with them as well. So those two are our enemies and they secretly pretend to be our enemies, and at the highest levels, in secret, they're working together against us. It's like a con game. So that's how my friend Andy explained the Middle East crisis. It's like you have two enemies who pretend they are mortal enemies, but secretly behind the scenes at the highest levels, they are working together against us. So that's what's going on. And of course, when I was discussing things with my buddy, Andy asked me, so can I say that Barack Obama is the twice-born son of Satan, twice-born spawn of Satan? I don't remember what Andy said exactly. I'll remember it later on. Okay, this is a good book to get. It's not quite precise in that more stuff happened in the garden from the extra biblical books, which I have not read and don't have access to, but I've heard about those. So this is close enough to get you there so you understand the big picture. All right? This is my original NIV study Bible from 1983 when I went to Bible school at Abbott Loop Church in Anchorage. It used to be the south part of Anchorage. Now it's like the middle of the town. As you can see, I put tabs in this Bible. I broke the binding. It's not too bad, actually. It's still fairly intact. I have marked up and studied this Bible. I know a lot of you don't like the NIV. I rather like it. On a word-for-word translation, it's more accurate than the King James. King James is more accurate when it comes to the spirit and comes to the phrases. I know there's a lot of errors and problems with both of these, but the right Bible is the one you read. So whatever you're reading, folks, I'm okay with. I'm all for it. You will end up getting comparative Bibles more likely and comparing different versions, because you have got a lot more available to you when you have other versions. Okay, now this other book I'm going to show you is the number six book in importance for you. The Bible being number one. The second most important document is our Declaration of Independence. I need you to read that. You need to read that. It'll help you understand some things. And then the third one would be our Constitution. Now, as far as what number 4 and number 5 are, I don't know what people are referring to. But this here is a fruit from a poisonous tree. I have 2 copies of it. This copy is my study copy. It's dog-eared. I really need to go through this book again. I highlighted immediately because it was just too important. Basically, this is written by an attorney, by Melvin Stamper, Stamper, JD, Juris Doctorate. I know that you all think I don't like attorneys. Well, the crazy thing is that I was supposed to become an attorney, and my mother in particular was extremely disappointed. My father, towards the end of his life, denied wanting me to ever be an attorney. Yeah. And my grandparents let me know how disappointed they were because they wanted me to become an attorney. I found the right path for me. I wish I had followed my father's advice. I wish I'd have been a better boy. I would have married my college sweetheart, would have had a family with her. That was probably the last time you can get married and have a family that might last. Probably half of those people that married in 1970s, they might still be together today. Actually, slightly over half of those are probably together. Not all marriages end in divorce. Slightly more than half would last until recently, when the courts went so weird with the no-fault divorce stuff and awarding custody automatically to the women, and everything they could. So this subtitle on this is Secrets That Were Never Meant to Be Revealed. You need to get this book and read it. It's going to explain some things to you that I'd rather not explain. There's some, and I think that it would help you to read this. So get this, and I know it's not available on Amazon. You'll have to get it somewhere else. They don't like this book. Another really important book is called Sex and Culture, published in 1934 by Unwin, Unwin. It's very important. Aldous Huxley said that it was one of the most important books in the world. You can get that for free. Google it on the internet. There are PDF copies of it. It is a long work, about 750 pages. It's the life work of this social psychiatrist, social psychologist, actually. I don't know what Unwin was. I think he was referred to as a social psychologist, social psychiatrist. I don't think they had medications, poisons going on very much back then. What's the importance of that book? It explains how our culture, it explains the fate of our nation at this point. What Unwin discovered is that when female sexuality becomes unbridled, two things occur. And I know most of you out there watching this are ladies, so you need to hear this, and please don't take it the wrong way. I think when you hear it, you're going to become very angry. I hope not at me. The first thing he discovered is once female sexuality became unbridled, it never went back in the bottle. That genie never went back in the bottle. You never reversed it. That was the first thing that he found out. And what he did was a longitudinal study across all civilizations that we knew about to that point. And I want to make that point right now because I disagree with that point. He ain't right. The second point that he made, the second discovery, conclusion he came to, is that once female sexuality became unbridled, that culture ceased to exist. It was doomed, and it disappeared from the face of the earth. All cultures in which that occurred ceased to exist, ceased to be. Okay. The book was completed in 1932. He waited 2 years to publish it because he wanted to make sure he was right. He wanted to make absolutely certain that he was positively correct about his lifetime work. And he was. Except there was a gentleman that came along after him. Now, can you boys and girls guess what his name is? Because I can't say it here. We're not allowed to say that name here. Okay? He's supposed to be the most vile and evil man in the world. And I used to say, no man could be that vile or that wicked or that evil. But then I realized that the Bible, the definition of men, the original language, is completely different than what we have and what we understand. It is far more discriminating and far more accurate. So the evil people really aren't considered men in the Bible. They aren't Adam or Adam kind. They're not Adam. They're actually hybrids from the fallen angels, the fallen ones. Some of you out there are going to want to hear space aliens. Okay, fine. I'm not going to disagree with you. What happened is that in 1936, a gentleman rose to power. And that is the year of the peak of the population proportion for Caucasians on the planet at approximately, we peaked in approximately 1933 at approximately 30% of the world's population, the other 70% being the other species. Sorry, boys and girls, that's the way I see it. That's the way I like it. And that's the way the guy who wrote the Bible, that's the way they like it too. They've got a different name for the original inhabitants of the planet. The earthy man, the Enosh or Enoshwi. The Enosh or Enoshwi, Nothing's wrong with them. A matter of fact, they've been on the planet for 1.75 million years. Okay? Now, I'm not certain about that, but that's the best guess we have. That's the evidence we have that goes back that man was on the planet. Could have been a different species of man. They just recently discovered an 80,000-year-old species of man that they're calling Dragon Man. And the only difference between modern humans and Dragon Man was that Dragon Man had a thicker skull. Okay? Oh, and there were hominids, men, who had papier-mâché skulls too. Skulls the consistency of paper mache. So imagine how vulnerable they were. Thank God Creator Father gave us these hard heads because we need them. Yeah, okay, we're stiff-necked. We're stubborn. We're slow to learn. Bunch of retards. We're mentally ill. We're not in touch with reality. A lot of us run around with that great delusion. Someone will give me something for nothing. And that's what I like to call the liberal delusion. That's okay. The folks that are conservative, their delusion is you're psycho. You're out of touch with reality. That's all there is. Sorry. Both classes have got some doggone mental illness, in my opinion. Why do you want to get this book and read it? You're going to understand how our nation was founded much better in this. And you're going to understand some of the perversions of our nation and our self-rule. You'll also understand the importance of the Kent family in the founding of this nation, because a tradition was generated over by the Kents in England, which came to the New World, and it allowed us to be landed free men. We weren't intended to be in a society like this where we're given certificates of title and we are taxed to death and we can be attached. It was intended that we would have our own little plots of land, which were patented. They could not be taxed. They could not be attached. If a gentleman had a claim against you, he couldn't levy it against your property. Oh, and you owned all rights on the ground and up in the air on your property. And if there was a challenge to land patent, which we all welcomed at the time, the research would be done, and the land would be recertified, and typically your governor signed off on your land patent, indicating that this indeed was your property. And so you couldn't get a mortgage on your property because it couldn't be attached. Just like ancient Israel, we Israelites over in the Americas were supposed to keep our property in perpetuity. Even our founders, in their eulogies about each other, would say a great man in Israel has passed. They knew who they were. They knew who we were. We've lost it. They gave us a new Bible called the Schofield Reference Study Bible in about 1917. There's more text in the footnotes and in the study notes and in the margins than there is Bible on the page. And they put lies in there. One of the big lies is that Moses was a Jew. No, there were no Jews at the time of Moses. The Jewish people, the first mention of Jews, I think, is 2 Kings. And then we really don't have the word Jew or even the letter J in the English language until the time of Shakespeare, until the time of the Jesuits. And it wasn't just an I that was modified into a J. It's a little bit bigger than that. Remember, the deceptions are subtle and yet sometimes right in your face, very massive. So go get this book. You're going to find out some interesting stuff about your IRS. Yeah, you need to read that. I don't want to be accused of leading any kind of revolt. I just want us to return to self-rule. The food riots have started in other parts of the world. They're burning stuff. They're massive riots. They're not making our news here. Gee, I wonder why that is. It's because the same guy is calling all the shots behind the scenes, folks. He really is there. He really does exist. You need to understand that someday he'll be marched out publicly. Someday he'll be exposed. I've gotten more videos on the Khazarians. I'm going to link to those if I can. I'm trying to save those. And I'll be linking to those in my blog, givingpsychologyaway.com. Go to my blog. There's free books there. Get your heritage, get the maps as well by Bertrand Comparet. You can download that for free there. There's also Mr. Weissman's book, Who is Esau Edom? And that's a good book. He doesn't cover everything. It's a good overall primer to give you some tips so that you will be able to realize who they are and how active they are. As I get more organized and I bring in more books, I'm going to show those to you. But there's a few others that I recommend. I recommend Pawns in the Game. And it's got a chessboard on the cover of it by Admiral William Guy Carr. That's one of the most important books in the world. You will find that he has the conclusion that the Jewish people are not the evil ones, that they have been used and exploited. I agree. I don't know what term to call the evil ones behind the scenes. Some call them the Olympians. So imagine that. They call themselves after the Greek gods because they regard themselves as gods today, and they'll tell you that because they determine the fates of peoples. They really do. Also, the Committee of 300. I guess there's a round table in their capital in Kazakhstan. There's so much that we don't know and understand, folks. I would certainly love to have the budget to be able to travel and look at these places for myself and go and see those and visit those. But I'm content to stay inside the borders today. I'm content to be well grounded. I don't like flying places. I don't think this is the time to travel. Things are going to be coming apart very quickly here. It's coming apart across the world as well. Remember, they've got to take us down, and then they have the whole place to themselves. They got the whole planet. We are all that stands between them and the rest of the world, and we are asleep. We are a gentle giant. We are a sleeping giant. You know, we're pretty much Gulliver at this point. And we need to raise up and shake off the fleas. These guys have been hounding us for too many years. They practice all kinds of magic on us to our literature. They've controlled the publications for at least 3,000 years. They've been editing everything. They've been hiding things, censoring things. Oh, and they censor things electronically today. Same people, same families, same descendants, the same offspring. You learn the truth by reading the Bible. It's a primer. It's the original book that we used to learn English in the colonies. That's what we had. We all had the Bible. Geneva, the Geneva Bible was the form. It's a pretty good Bible. I had a copy of it. Language, the syntax, Middle English. It's a little odd. I don't have a copy of it anymore. I didn't care for it much when I had it. Again, the best version of the Bible is the one you read. So whatever you read, whatever catches your eye. And I do have my other Bible here somewhere. And that's a modern English version with the Apocrypha in modern English. And I have also the little red book, the King James version of the Apocrypha, which is different than the modern English version. You need them both, in my opinion. There's key words that the King James has that the modern English omits. The word sedition comes up in the King James version, and it's not in the modern English version. And that's what we've had here today, is we had sedition against the man that we wanted to be king over us, the man that we elected. We had sedition. We have that going on now. We have a false jurisdiction superimposed upon us. We are held captive. We are in captivity. We have been deported when it comes to our jurisdiction and our legal system. There's some severe sins and errors, and the fruit from a poisonous tree, even in the flap of the cover, it alludes to the problems we have with our criminal justice system. Namely, that since about 1954, maybe it was 1958, 62, 64, we have accepted nothing but statutory pleas. And I'm not an attorney, so I don't understand this. But apparently, the attorneys, especially the prosecuting attorneys, were very disturbed when they realized that there was no common law, that they weren't accepting proper convictions. So, can you imagine if you're a prosecuting attorney and you find out now that all those convictions you've done across your entire life were flawed, that each in themselves was a crime? That you've committed a crime with each of those? I'd be pretty upset. I'd want to keep it secret. I wouldn't want the world to know. I wouldn't know what to do. I would be paralyzed. I would be helpless. Learned helpless is very important. And the guy who invented it, after he did that, my sneaking hunch is that he went on to do experiments behind the scenes in secret for our government to come up with better ways to control us, better ways to subdue us. Folks, there's a whole bunch of psychologists that are behind the scenes working for governments and corporations. They've got the biggest and best computers. They've got access to the biggest and best literature. Some of them are probably involved in some of this horrible stuff that you and I have heard about, which I'm not going to mention. I've got a book by Bryce Taylor. I paid $50 for it. In comes the receipt, signed by a different name, saying thank you for your purchase. The list price on the book was only $40. It was signed by the author in a real name. I can't read the book. It brings me to tears to realize, what that young girl went through and what a lot of these young girls go through to become these modern, real weird vixens that they become. Marilyn Monroe was one of them, and I know y'all worship her. By the way, did you know that she was murdered? The CIA agent who murdered Marilyn Monroe gave us a deathbed confession. And he told us also that in the course of his illustrious career inside of our borders, inside of our nation, as a CIA operative, he had killed more than 70 people under orders. The CIA wasn't supposed to even do stuff in our borders, I think. But, there's some weird things about the CIA. For instance, every CIA operative, according to a friend of mine who was an attorney, female attorney, married to a male attorney. They're not married anymore. I guess that got pretty contentious. Don't you think two attorneys fighting would be bad? Oh, folks, you've never seen it. You ain't seen nothing. Could you imagine two psychologists fighting? A man and a woman? Yeah, I had that opportunity, and I just realized that it wasn't going to work because we're too well armed, and everything we have is a negative term, a negative label. And, if we use that on each other, it gets pretty vicious. So, remember that we're mentally ill. As far as I'm concerned, the profession's mentally ill because of the structure of it. It's built upon poisons, just like allopathic medicine is today. It's all built on toxicity and disabling, and modern psychology is a negative projective process that is also poisoning and disabling. Yeah, I don't like my profession very much because they're jackasses. They're mostly libtards. Okay, there goes my speech. I was being such a good boy. I was almost proud of myself. What do you need to understand this morning? Things are coming down very quickly. I've got 3 sponsors in the wings. Haven't got the pages quite set up fully for the Bible sales. And I always knew I was going to be coming to the party late. In one of my excursions, came to the party late as well. The Queen Mother's birthday party. I'll tell you that someday. I don't know. I kind of cry when I think about some of the shit I've been through. Ooh, there I go again. It was a rough excursion. I didn't appreciate it very much. I realized that a lot of it's been training for me. Training for me so I could have the presence of mind here and now to be with you to help you. You got to wake up. You got to defend yourself. You can't ignore this any longer. My family didn't like me very much. They always wanted to sit things out. They didn't believe what I said. And I know I got alerted and I got panicked pretty easily. And I am a man of strong emotions. That's all there is to it. I don't like being so emotional, but it's the way things, the way it turned out, it's the way things are. So I try to accept myself the way I am. And I will tell you this, that life gets better as you get older. Um, Jerry, a Jesuit, our pensione in Florence, Italy, at the university, this is one of those wonderful little talks. I really appreciated this from you, Jerry. I know you're not alive today. You know, you were in your 50s then, so that was 1973, 74. Anyway, he told me, John, it gets better as you get older. I guess I was lamenting. I was turning 21. And he was telling me that, as far as he could tell, it gets better as you get older. Each decade is better than the previous decade. Your life is further enriched. You're more mature. You get a greater stability. You have a greater appreciation. And of course, I'm in the latter stages of my life. I'm towards the end. I hate to say that, but I'm definitely past the midpoint. And of course, one of my mentors, his great question, counseling question was, do you think that half of your life is before you, that you have more than half of your life before you, or is it more than, is half of your life behind you? In other words, where are you in your lifespan in this little period of travel around the sun, which is a tiny period of traveling around the Milky Way galaxy? That giant clock, that giant thing that the Lord set up. Okay, now folks, let's get into the season. Easter. You're going to celebrate Easter. I'm not. I would love to tell you Easter's not in the Bible, but it is. One time, and one time only in the New Testament. And if you read it, you will understand that it comes from Ishtar, from a pagan celebration. And you will read about a man in there who had just come from an Easter celebration. That's the word that's used in the New Testament. And he was dressed in very fine, shiny raiment. I think it was like a gold toga or something. He was well dressed. And the people said that he looked like God. And he fell down dead. And the people said that was because he failed to give homage to God properly. Instead, he allowed people to refer to him as God. Now, I haven't read that story in a while. I'm an Old Testament guy. I'd rather spend time in the Apocrypha as well, or in the Psalms to get, some solace. I suggest you read that because Easter's in the Bible, but it's not our holiday, folks. It's theirs. Now, what is in the Bible is it says very clearly that these feast days, these holy days of ancient Israel, the command is in there to celebrate them in perpetuity, forever. And there's good reason for that, because big things, wonderful things happened on those days, on the high holy days, not just during the week of the feast, but on the high holy day itself. And those things were set up in time, at the beginning of time, from what I can tell. When our galaxy was formed, this stuff was set in order, this giant clock, all of this stuff. And the rest of the universe, because these stars and planets, there is a gospel in the sky. And it actually says that in the Bible, gospel in the sky. Now, it also says you're not supposed to, visit astrologers and mediums and witches and from whatever spirits. You're not supposed to go hang out with them. You're not supposed to consult with them. Well, there's some problems. I think there's a little overlap, and maybe there needs to be a little bit finer discrimination of thoughts made upon this. And in case you're thinking you don't have the judgment for this, and in case you're wandering around always saying, I don't judge others. Oh, I'm not judging others. Oh, no. I'm not going to judge. That's a sin. Who are you to judge me? Well, folks, I was a psychologist. And yes, I would judge you. Hopefully, I had permission to do it. I had an informed consent. It set the stage for my office. We went through the ceremony. It queued me up to let me know that I had to be on my best and my finest, that I was professionally responsible, and that I had to do my best for you. So I practiced under a particular set of circumstances. I was trained to operate that way, and that stuff only goes live during those times, folks. So I know some of you would love readings and would love therapy, would love, to be analyzed and all that. Don't ask me to do it. I'm retired. I don't do that stuff anymore. I no longer have a license anywhere. I felt I had to retire my license in Idaho. I wished I had not done that. I wished I had just confessed up the problems I had in Arizona and paid the $200 to keep the license going at this point. At the time that I retired it, I was in real bad shape after the strokes. I really didn't think I was safe to practice. I couldn't tell a story back, so how the heck do you conduct therapy? How do you conduct psychotherapy if you can't remember what the guy says, right? If you can't tell the story back. Well, I've gotten better and I can tell the story back, as you can tell. Still got some problems. You won't see those. I read and I study a lot and I apply myself. I have to do it that way. Just to keep going, just to stay active. I do all sorts of things to cue up my memory. Oh, by the way, one of the sponsors would be a supplement, a prescription supplement. It's not a poison, it's not a toxin, and it's only available by prescription. And it helps reduce strokes, the risk of stroke, and it helps with short-term memory. It's on label with the FDA as a short-term memory. The clinical trials were done on that. It was proven to help with that memory. And then it's off-label for reducing inflammation in the brain, reducing the risk of stroke. I've been taking it since, quite a while, since I discovered I had those strokes, and I haven't stroked again. So I recommend it. I tried to get them to sponsor them before. They wouldn't go with it. They used to give me free supplies of it for myself when I had a psychologist license. If I'd have known they were going to cut that off, I would have kept the psychologist license going just for that, because it would have been a break-even deal. For the amount of money I would have spent on the supplements, I would have had the license fees and the continuing education units. So I really regret not having done that. The state of Arizona was another thing. They were a bunch of jackasses. That's all there is to it. They were out for me, out for blood. A bunch of liberals who want to get rid of the conservative. I also crossed swords with the governor of the state of Arizona. I never realized that. I had no idea what I was doing. I, boys and girls, was just following the rules, the regulations, and the laws for the state of Arizona at that time. And I thought I had to abide by them. They crucified me. They went after me and they ruined my profession. They put me under that such inordinate amount of stress and strain that I stroked, not once but twice. That was the last year I that was the last year I worked as a psychologist. Anyway, we'll go into that someday. It's kind of a sad story. At the last time I was before the board, When my attorney informed the board that I was going home to Alaska, they jumped at it. I mean, they almost jumped out of their seats with joy. Can we make that part of the consent agreement? And they wanted Dr. Kent to agree to leave Arizona and never return. They actually wanted that in writing. And the president of the board was a nice guy. He had a good heart. He really does have a good heart. And the attorney for the board, the state's attorney, she was a good lady. She confided some things in with my attorney that I needed to hear, and I'm going to tell you those as well. And they both came to my defense and told them this isn't the communist country. This is the United States of America. We don't do that. We don't excommunicate people. We don't ban them. We don't kick them out. I realized at that point that I could no longer deal with these people. They had voted twice to they voted to reactivate my license, and on both occasions I landed jobs. I was ready to leave the state on my own. I landed jobs out of the state. If they'd left me alone, I don't know that I was safe to do it. I mean, the strokes and the losses were pretty profound. But I had a nice job lined up. It was perfect for me. I was going to go work for the United States Air Force, work with some normal people instead of in the prisons. And I was perfectly suited for the job because my boss and I, we talked things over in advance. Now, he was my boss. He might have to fire me, but because I was doing my job, but my job was to defend these B1 pilots, I think it was, or B1 pilots, I think it was. And the Air Force was trying to drum them out of the service, and he needed somebody in there to advocate for them, to fight for them. And I think he was the major, and I talked at length of this. I was older than he was, and I had that military background. I'd never been actively in the military, but I consider myself in the military permanently, and I'm still on that mission right now. I want to save my nation, save our country. Anyway, I couldn't take the job, and even the major pleaded with me how badly he needed me and to fight them. The fact is that I was out of sorts, that the medicine that I was taking was improperly discontinued, causing a stroke and giving me some horrible, horrible visual disturbances. Now imagine walking into a level 5 maximum security penitentiary, into a dungeon above ground, into one of the notorious supermax, the SMU2, where you got to wear goggles and a stab vest on duty, and you got death row, and you got to go to work, and you're not right, but your doctor will no longer write you an excuse to stay out of work because she doesn't want to cross swords with an insurance company. She had already given me 2 months of leave from work, and I was pulling short-term disability. The medicine and I weren't getting along. My body was rejecting it. I had some pretty bad diarrhea from it. I was on huge doses of it. I think they had worked me all the way up to like 20 and a half tablets a day of this stuff. And you got to go up slow, and you got to come off it slowly. Unfortunately, the endocrinologist I had, as bright as she was, very young physician, she took me off it too quickly. I did file a complaint. They opened the complaint. They told me it was for the wrongful discontinuation of the drug. I didn't think she deserved to have a license yanked or anything like that. I think that and they won't tell you at Bomax what they do, but I think that what would have been appropriate in that case would have been to have given her a letter of reprimand, put a letter in the file, because you can't do that stuff to people because it kills people, basically. And anyway, Um, the board also contributed to my stress, and the marriage that I tried contributed to my stress because it was coming apart or had come apart at that point. And my dear friend at church saw fit to give shelter to my estranged wife and to take sides with her. Um, there's a little flavor of lesbianism there, okay? Yeah, I'm pretty positive that that's what was going on. Um, and she decided to take out an order of protection, and that's when the second stroke occurred. The stress of that, because by the policy at DOC, I had to turn in this new order of protection against me, and they were already trying to fire me. Actually, they did. We finally got it accepted as a resignation so I could keep my benefits. I had a really good attorney. I think he made the best call. However, the union had stopped paying him and stopped hiring him, and I think he backed out of it, and he should have really fought for me then. Had he taken up the case and we gone to court, I don't know what would have happened. Might have prevailed. But, I mean, what has happened has happened. Now, in case you're wondering, you can sit back there and say, poor Dr. Kent. And I agree with you that I was a victim, okay, but that's not a very empowering position, so please don't consider me a victim. You have to understand that Creator Father does things for a reason, and it's so that I could be here now for you. It's so that I could actually discover what I needed to discover. He humbled me. I had to turn to the only book on the shelves of my library, which was a big library, that I hadn't read. You know, that was the Bible. So I did that. I had a nice living room, a nice house. One of the reasons I chose it was for the natural light for reading. I had a really good chair. Best friend in Mississippi told me how comfortable these chairs were, and I had a pair of them made. Oh, I got a good deal on that. I had them made up in a maple wood with a gold leather. Nice, nice and bright. I had a pair of them. Was going to do therapy in those. Never did do that. Never opened up my own office. Yeah, those were good chairs. I could sleep in those when I had trouble with my breathing and other trouble. I had a reading desk. I still have that desk to this day. I'm missing a piece of hardware, but I can fashion a fix for it. And it would allow me to put the book at the proper angle for my eyes. I wouldn't have to hold the book, you know, and it allowed me to read. All the book was at the same focal length instead of flat, where, you know, the book is at wrong focal lengths. So one of the things that my mentor Glade, oh, I miss it. He emphasized to me as he was pushing me on into graduate school that I had to get a good chair and I had to have good quality lights. I bought the quartz halogen lights. Oh, those were nice lights. I had to give that up too, and my losses along the way. And then get a surface to read your book at an angle. And I did get one of these from Lax the Back store, I think it was. Oh, I shouldn't be mentioning names like that. But that's all right. I hope they're good folks. You know? Anyway, I had their reading desk, which was on wheels, and you could roll it up. And with the chair and the footstool, I actually could make it work. And I had my quilts and stuff, so I would be able to stay warm. So I sat on my butt in the corner of the room of my living room with a great, wonderful, large windows with great exposure, high ceiling in the room. I don't remember. I think it was about 15 feet high. It was a middle of the range house. It wasn't a really opulent place, but I liked it quite a bit. I couldn't afford that house today. I do wish I had stayed in that, but I went back to Alaska to take care of my parents. That didn't work out too good, but that's why I went back there. Anyway, I sat on my butt and I read my Bible. And in the morning, I would go for a walk or a run in the dark, in the cool of the morning, just like it says in the Bible. Adam walked with his father in the garden in the cool of the morning, cool of the day, which I figured out wasn't the evening time. Not in Arizona, it was the morning time, especially in the month of September. And I came across a cat, called the cat to me. Um, and I'll be darned. About 4:15 every morning when I was out there walking, and it was kind of crowded in the morning at that hour because that's when we were all out there walking in my neighborhood. And this cat would be along a particular block wall to a house, and I'd go by there, and the cat would show up, provided I was there at 4:15, not 15 minutes earlier or 15 minutes later. And I finally realized that cat was there for me. You know, he was kind of a dirty cat, small cat. I thought he was an adolescent, and I would pet him, and he liked that. Turned out that he was living in a storm gutter on the street. Found out from a fellow when I found my dog. Yeah, found my dog at the same time. He was tied to a light post over there. That's why I almost called him Light Post. And when this gentleman was walking beside me, um, spoke to the diesel before I named him, before he adopted me. He said, "So you want to play, little fellow?" And he said, "Look, somebody abandoned a lab puppy." And I said, "No, nobody would abandon a lab puppy like that. They just tied him up there while they were going for his walk." He says, "Oh, really? Then what's the bad puppy chow doing there?" Yeah, they had abandoned a little boy at 7 weeks of age. So it was during that conversation I mentioned that I was looking for the cat, that I was trying to get the cat for my pet. And I had actually taken the cat home and left him in the backyard, and the cat was gone. The cat went back to the gutter, the storm drain in which he lived, right off the parkway there, right off Fox Run. And the man told me, "Oh, you mean the cat?" That he saw the cat. He knew about the cat. Cat lived in the storm drain, right there where the dog was at. I went back and got him later. That was Curly. So I carried this bundle of joy in my hands, knowing I can find a home for a black lab puppy. Somebody's going to want a black lab puppy. There's not going to be any problem. I'll find a home for him. And I had to carry him with both hands. He was so tiny, so delicate. He had these huge eyes in his head. And, I mean, he was beautiful. I thought he was a pure black lab. Turned out he was about the greatest mix in the world. He was Great Dane black lab. I miss it. Yeah, you don't heal in a vacuum, folks. So if your heart is rendered, I understand you probably need some time alone. But, you will do better not when you hook up again. You will do better when you properly pair off again. The problem you ladies have is that you tend to monkey branch up. You tend to overlap even. You tend to even pick them out before you're done with the first one. I'm sorry. That's just the nature that's predominant right now. I know most of you of my age don't think that way, aren't that way, but the younger ones are. We'll talk about that. I'm going to start a series, and I'm about ready to start that series. I just want to get these sponsorships in line. Then I'm going to start with a new topic, and I'm going to tell the truth about this, and I'm going to give you all the information that I have available to me, everything, Eastern, Western, Christian, Sikh. I don't consider myself Christian or Sikh. I'm a Bible reader. Trying to be definitely the faith of our fathers, which was what Yahshua referred to it as, Yahshua the Messiah. And of course, his followers called it the way. And he did say, "I am the way, the truth, and the light." Okay, folks, I think that's a nice note to stop this on.